want to actually turn then to Washington. Errol Barnett. Errol, we were talking about how the State Department was acknowledging that social media has been shut down in the country, which is not uncommon when coups take place. What is the advice that the State Department has given to Americans? Because there are many Americans who also travel to Turkey.
That's right. The State Department is still assessing information and will be noting those comments the president made. I mean, if you think about the safety of having the military in many of the major cities in full force, and now the president urging citizens to go out into the streets, and we should note that it's past midnight in Turkey right now in many of the cities there, so it's late into the night and now transitioning into Saturday. The U.S. State Department on that note has urged U.S. citizens there to shelter in place and stay indoors. So of course not to listen to what President Erdogan is urging Turkish citizens. They are urging people to update family and friends of your status when possible. The Secretary of State John Kerry, who was not briefed on the details of all of this, but was essentially alerted by reporters when he exited a briefing with Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov, said that he doesn't have all of the details, but he does hope that there will be stability and peace in Turkey. The State Department just initially saying they want continuity. Of course, uncertainty can be troubling not just for financial markets but for the ongoing war against ISIS. The U.S. military launches much of its aircraft from Turkish military bases as they head towards Iraq and northern Syria in their fight against the Islamic militants. If a coup has now taken place, there are questions as to who is in charge. President Erdogan being very defiant there in statements, and we would expect him to keep speaking forcefully as he makes his efforted return to the capital. But the pictures we're watching live now on the streets and the video we're seeing from across the country don't necessarily suggest that people are upset and feeling unnerved by this coup attempt. As was noted by another journalist we spoke with, Erdogan's become increasingly unpopular with what many critics have claimed are more authoritarian and Islamist approaches. The sources with the president's office do note that this upcoming change of command in August, where certain generals and military officials would have either been promoted or retired, is one of the triggers for this coup attempt. Observers have noted that those within the military, increasingly uncomfortable with the continued changes that President Erdogan has made, would see this as an opening. He was reportedly on holiday, absent on state television for some 6 days, and they looked at this Friday night window, it would seem, as a window of opportunity to take control of the powers of the state. State television, which is now off air, we understand, was broadcasting the demands from the military. As we noted earlier, that was for a new constitution. That's what they're demanding, one to be prepared as soon as possible. An EU source monitoring events says the military has control of airports, so these are the major transportation hubs in the country, and other strategic points in Istanbul, and there are reports where we're trying to confirm of border crossings being closed as well. The announcer on Turkey's state television, before it was cut off, did say that democratic and secular rule of law has been eroded by the current government. So this in many ways is being sold, at the very least, as a populist democratic movement restoring democracy in the country. And historically speaking, the Turkish military has performed coup attempts in the past in order to restore a balance of democracy. So President Obama is receiving regular updates on what's taking place there. The State Department is urging American citizens to stay inside as they assess the situation. The Pentagon had no previous information of all of this, and we'll continue to get more response from officials here in Washington. But it seems as though officials here in Washington will be watching these images broadcast on private networks, as well as what we saw earlier on state television, with the same amount of interest and knowledge as the rest of us, Serena. So we'll continue to put this together, but it does appear that there is a coup attempt underway and that President Erdogan is doing his best to hang on to power.
Our Errol Barnett giving us a vantage point from how Washington is perceiving the situation on the ground in Turkey.